Hey everybody, this is Dee Dee Verg from InTheKnowRadio.com, where we interview ordinary people who have created extraordinary lives for themselves. And today we're going to be speaking to Freja Njorden. Freja is a master hypnotist, a body worker, and an intimacy educator. She consults on a variety of subjects which include erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, the inability to ejaculate, matters to do with libido, desire, arousal, eroticism, and anything sensual. Freja is known as the sensualist. So whether you are a couple needing to spice up your sex lives or whether you just want to learn more about your own sensuality, Freja will be speaking with us here today about how she uses a variety of modalities, including hypnosis, to work with sexual issues and to help enhance sexuality. So welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Wonderful to be here.
What is it that first got you into hypnosis?
Well, many years ago, when I was a massage therapist, I did some subliminal tapes, subliminal recordings to make a difference in my life, and they worked really well. I wanted to work with the guy who made them, and his business partner had other ideas. So I was searching for something that would also have the same effect or a similar effect on the brain. I wanted to be able to change people's minds and change them from the inside so that outside their lives could reflect that.
Wonderful. And what have you learned about the power of hypnosis so far? Not just from yourself, but in working with people.
The hypnosis as a tool is limitless. So if you want to see any kind of change in your life, whether it's in your health or in your relationship or in your sexuality, you need to tap into the inside before you can see the changes outside.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I understand you work with males, females, couples, and transgender people. So let's begin with females. So you speak on your website about using a combination of body work that incorporates hypnosis for healing past trauma, overcoming body image, and increasing sexual pleasure. Can you walk us through how you would do this and what it's done for some of your female clients to help them release their sensuality?
Yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions about female sexuality. So women coming into the studio normally feel like they have a problem. They think their sexuality is problematic. Either they do themselves or their partner does, because their partner thinks she should be responding in a certain way. And what I do is help to dispel the myths and then help them discover, using their own mind, what their body actually needs to be extremely responsive, because what they're getting is not what they need. And they don't know what they need. They don't know how to give their partner instructions, and the men are just guessing based.
Yeah, and how would we know?
But how would you really know?
Yeah, how would we know? And to be quite honest, we've taken one of Freja's workshops and it was amazing. I learned things that I couldn't even imagine were possible, and I walked away, and all of the ladies did, feeling so very empowered about how we could, spice up our sex lives with whomever partner we're with. So it was really amazing. So if you ever consider it, I highly recommend it. So what are some of the issues you see with males calling in or?
Well, men a lot of times ignore their problems until their penis stops working. So generally that's when they start searching for a solution. So premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, the inability to ejaculate, which is actually becoming huge given how prolific pornography is and excessive irresponsible masturbation. So they come in looking for help because a lot of times their issues actually start to affect their relationships, and they shut down and the women become frustrated and blame themselves. The men sometimes blame the women. And they need to learn how the mind and the body work together to have peak performance for males. But I don't like the word performance because erotic pleasure and response is not a performance. It's an experience.
Right. Now, we've spoken on this subject before, so just want to share with our audience what happens when these boys start watching pornography and they, as you say, irresponsibly masturbate. What happens with their sensitivity level?
The problem with it, especially when they start very young, is that your mind is conditioned to what you're looking at. And the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something happening on screen and a real woman beside you. So, young boys are supposed to be, trying to snap girls' bras and get their hands in their pants and becoming excited by the physical proximity of another young person. And instead of that, what they're seeing as their initial sexual experiences are hardcore pornography every day, all the time on their phone. So what happens is that their brain and their bodies are unable to respond to real life. So here's a girl, and you know, she's pretty, she's not a porn star, she doesn't know how to do all these things, and he's like, first of all, he doesn't know what to do with her body, and second of all, he expects her to do all of these things that really are not maybe appropriate for people of that age.
Right. And what happens to their sensitivity with their actual penis?
Yeah, so the other thing with this excessive porn watching, when you're watching it regularly and for long periods of time, the guys do this thing called edging, so that, you know, they're looking through more and more and more stimulatory things, and they're gripping so hard that there's no way another person could actually compete with that. So when it comes to real life, they're not getting the visual stimulation, the mental stimulation, or the physical. No vagina compete with like an iron fist. And they're completely desensitized. So there's a protocol for that, to bring them back into their bodies and to actually get them into enjoying real human beings again, real women.
Right. So, and you help them with that. So what are the issues that people contact you most about? Like, I know you have a variety. You have couples. What about the sexless love marriage? Talk to us a little bit about that.
So what's very common is a marriage where the couple loves each other very much. They want to stay together, and they're extremely bored sexually and demotivated, and they think this is kind of it. They've tried the normal, conventional things, stepping outside the box, but those aren't actually designed to make you go deeper. We have a primary exciting response to a new partner. So when you try to fake that you're a new partner with new clothes, new situations, new acts, that works for a short period of time, and then it falls flat again. So what you have to do is, instead of moving on to something new, is you have to go deeper out of this primal mating sexuality and into a much higher level of pleasure. And that you're cultivating that arousal, and there's no limit to how deep you can go, but you have to know how to do it.
And that's where you come in.
And that's where I come in, because this is not just out there. People are looking, but they're not finding the answers.
Well, because you also have the hypnosis, do you guide them through a mental process also hypnotically?
Very much so. Part of this, and I would call it actually the foundation or the primary technique, is the same technique that hypnotists use. So in a trance, you have the hypnotist and the subject, and you're in a dynamic feedback loop. You're completely focused. You're both in trance. You're focused on each other, and that's exactly the state you need to be in for this peak state sexuality. And when you're there, like I said, there's no limit. You can go anywhere. You can go as deep as you want to, or as high as you want to, and that's what you have to get into every single time you engage sexually.
So you're helping them to create the right state of mind. What is erotic conditioning?
Erotic conditioning is conditioning the body using hypnosis to be more sensitive sexually. And you can do it on very superficial levels. So people who just aren't in their body and can't feel erotic pleasure from a sensate point of view, you know, they're in their heads, bringing them into their bodies so that they are very responsive. You can condition specific responses, like a very simple one would be having orgasms from nipple stimulation alone, or, you know, if you want to play, you know, being able to orgasm from a kiss on your wrist or nibbling on your ear, or become very aroused. Going alternative, if I was, so my feet are not my erotic point, and I don't get anything out of it. A foot massage is nice, but that's it. Now, if I had a partner who had a foot fetish or a pantyhose fetish, and I wanted to indulge him, my feet could quite easily be conditioned so that I could orgasm from him sucking on my toes.
And that would work for both of you.
Yeah, and that would be fun for both partners. Or if I wanted to really, you know, be crazy about wearing pantyhose for some reason because my partner had a pantyhose thing, then you could do that. So it goes into the full spectrum.
So basically, anything you want to be conditioned to, you can.
Anything. You can even condition people to have, to feel as if they have the body of the opposite gender, but that's a whole nother subject.
But let's talk about that, because
Okay.
that's an interesting one, because I know a large portion of your clientele is transgender people who come in and maybe they're men and they want to be a woman, but they just can't get there. So how is it that you help those people?
Some people aren't ready or willing to have surgery, or they don't want to go trans the entire way, or they feel as if, okay, I'd like to live life as a man, but there is an aspect of me that is a woman and I want to feel this fully for a period of time. So there's a whole spectrum. And with hypnosis, you can make that switch extremely real. So this guy now becomes the female aspect, or the female version of himself. He feels his breasts. He feels the difference in his neck and his skin sensitivity. His sexual organs are experienced as female ones, not as male ones, and it's very real.
That's
and
amazing.
the personality even changes. They have different thought processes. They have different concerns in life, which also is a big appeal.
Yes.
So it's a really, really, really powerful and interesting shift.
That's amazing, because I think we all wonder at times, what would it feel like to be the opposite sex? But if you could actually feel it,
Yeah,
and
if you
be
could-
it,
Yeah, even
that
if
would
it
be
was just for an
amazing.
hour.
Yeah,
But
or
no,
however
it
long
can
you
no, it
want.
can last as long as you want.
Yeah,
but
because with hypnosis, you are in charge of how long you want it to
Yeah.
last. That's amazing. So you also do something called pleasure rehabilitation. Can you explain what that is?
yeah, the sex that we kind of think of as sex is very much geared towards young, fit, attractive people, and they're the only ones that can have really hot sex, and and anything else is sort of a compromise. Okay, I'm old, or
Because that's the way it's portrayed
and,
on the
well,
media.
and it's a very it's a very primal mating act. Now, that really has nothing to do with how sexual or how aroused you can be or how ecstatic your body can be. So if you've had, let's just say you've had a limb blown off, or maybe even part of your genitals damaged, and you don't have the same parts, or your parts are different, you tapping into your body using the mind can create actually even more ecstatic sensation than if you were, a young, fully functioning person. So it's great for people who've been injured, or who are somehow paralyzed, or even people who think they're too old or they're past it, but they desire to feel pleasure. You have to kind of bring them back into that body and generate new sensations.
And tell us about people, because there are people, believe it or not, that go, because I've had those kind of clients too, that have literally not had sex for 20 or 30 years. And I imagine for them it must be daunting. So have you had that experience with people coming in that have just,
Very much so.
they just want to get back in the game, but where to start?
And traditionally the only option is to go and see a prostitute and just sort of like hope to God you find somebody who is classy or safe.
Or how about caring?
Yeah. Well, caring.
Yeah.
With people who haven't had experience for a long time, there's a lot of self-esteem issues, because it's this issue that like builds up and becomes a monster. So using hypnosis to get them to feel safe and normal and not ashamed, and like something isn't missing from them because they haven't been having sex, and combining the hypnosis with the body work is the introduction to this sensual interaction.
Right.
And then they have to go out and find the partner to play with.
So tell us.
But it gives them the courage to do so.
Absolutely. So tell us about some of your success stories with that.
Okay. Actually, well, recently, and this is very exciting because it's now, actually, I saw this client earlier today. There was a couple who, they were in their late 60s, totally in love with each other. It was one of many marriages for the man, and they were sexless. And the male, although...
So they had never had sex in their marriage?
Oh, no, they had sex.
Oh, okay.
And it quickly became boring, and it dwindled and dwindled, and with that came the myriad of emotional issues that come when you stop having sex.
Right.
It builds up, and it's a thing between you, but nobody really knows how to deal with it.
It's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. And the male also had certain alternative desires that had to do with power play and dominance and submission. The woman, no clue, and not interested in exploring in that way, which was very frustrating for him. So he came to me. I find a lot of times men are the seekers. They're more active in seeking help for that kind of thing than women. And so he came and he wanted to have some help with his marriage because he didn't know if he could go on that way. And because of that aspect, the intimacy missing, he would engage in very risky behaviors outside of the marriage, and he wanted to stop. So using hypnosis and giving him homework, because his wife was not willing to come in. She knew about me, but she was like, you know what, I don't
Maybe a little too far out of her paradigm.
Exactly. So I gave him really, really safe homework that she would be able to accept, and built on that. So, 1 week started with one activity, built it up. And after several weeks to a month and a half of practicing the things that I told him to, the report was they were doing it, between 5 and 7 times a week. And it was the best sex either of them had ever had in their entire lives. In their late 60s, coming from this whole really, really repressed sexless marriage.
That's amazing.
And what was even more touching about that is because his intimacy needs were now being met, and they had nothing to do with getting laid. They were about the connection between him and his wife. He no longer had any desire. He said, these people that I used to engage with, they would, they'd be calling or texting, and he just didn't want to. He didn't need it anymore.
That's amazing. So what other transformations have you seen in terms of, let's say, a male coming in who's addicted to porn, like you said, has these sensitivity issues, the iron fist? What have you been able to do with someone who basically comes in, they only know how to get off on porn, but by the time you're done with them, what are they able to do?
First of all, I do have to say it requires change, and it requires cooperation on his behalf. He has to be actually willing to do the homework.
Right. Well, like anything.
But, it's not a magic button. It's not like you come in and from 1 minute to the next, suddenly you're free and you're a magical lover. But I've had men who are completely unable to physically respond to their female partners, or girls in general, because some of the younger guys are single, and they've gone from that to being able to have multiple non-ejaculatory orgasms, finding women just unbelievably, extraordinarily attractive, and porn, repulsive. It's boring. It's fake. There's nothing real for them.
But that's amazing.
And this is, coming from somebody who was a complete addict. That's a big change.
That is a huge change, actually. So I know that, for example, you may use some things that go outside what we call the vanilla sex, like BDSM. So how would you use BDSM to help people enhance their sexual lives? And just explain to our audience what BDSM is. Okay,
BDSM is, first of all, it's huge in the media right now because everybody is into BDSM right now. It's bondage, domination, submission, sadomasochism. And I say it, I don't even say the words. So where it works, or where it's a really, really healthy and relationship enhancing thing, is because you have to communicate with it. It's not about just getting a bunch of props and then wailing on your partner. You have to actually create these containers of safety. You have to negotiate boundaries, and you have to talk about what you like and what you want, which is a really, really difficult thing for people to do. There's so much guessing with sexuality, and people think, oh, well, it should come naturally. No. Look, our urges come naturally. Yeah, like our urges come naturally, but being a good lover doesn't. That's developed and learned how to do that. So, and every person likes a different type of stimulation, and then that may change over time. It may change from one day to the next. So using those techniques, you can really enhance the depth of your relationship, as well as how well you know each other.
Right. Well, if the communication is being forced, and they're pushing boundaries too, aren't they?
Oh, for sure. But in pushing, you're also discovering.
Absolutely.
And if we're pushing boundaries, but we have this container of safety, I know I can count on you no matter what to keep me safe. And when you have that, you can let go completely.
That's big. That's big. So you make a distinction between healthy kink and unhealthy kink. So explain the difference between how kink can be healthy and how it can be unhealthy.
That is such a huge subject, but basically, healthy kink, I would say, enhances your life. It's fun. It makes you feel sexy. You enjoy it, and you leave the activities feeling better. Once there is shame, guilt, coercion, and it makes you feel worse about yourself, I don't believe it's healthy. I know there are people that disagree with me and really, really, really are into this whole negativity and humiliation. That's not how I work, and I would rather see somebody change their minds. So somebody comes to me wanting a specific activity as a dominant. I'd like to see them change their mind so the activity that they're looking for is a positive expression as opposed to something that's destructive.
So
I don't want to perpetuate self-destruction.
They may come in because that's all they know and that's all that sort of gets them excited, but you can change it from something unhealthy and demeaning to just something that boosts their self-esteem in the end.
Exactly. Look, being caned can be healthy. It can also be unhealthy.
Sure.
It's all perspective and it's all how it's done.
Right. Okay. Now, tell us about if there's anything that you could leave our audience with about how powerful our minds are to create the feelings, the sensations, the changes in our body. What would you say to them?
When you tap into the mind, there is no limit on how much pleasure you can feel. For example, people think of orgasm as being, this contained event, which is some powerful contractions and then afterwards you feel good. It's not actually. If you take those few seconds, those few most intense seconds before you have that release, the orgasmic release, and you take those few seconds and you expand them to 10 seconds, expand them to a minute, expand them to 10 minutes, and now take the intensity of that and elevate it.
With your mind. This is all with your mind.
And you're feeling it. Your mind generates it, but you're feeling it. It's real in your body. And then you elevate it again. There's no limit to how much pleasure you can actually feel. So it's
about
really
reaching greater heights.
That's an orgasm.
That's amazing.
That is an orgasm, being suspended in that ecstatic state, not this little sneeze coming from the genitals. It's nothing.
Wonderful.
That's mating.
That's mating. That's primal mating. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.
We've learned a lot. Thanks.